Good evening, everyone, and welcome to your Bennington Select Board listening session. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd. We're meeting this evening in the third floor multi-purpose room of the Bennington Fire Facility on River Street in Bennington. My name is Tom Haley. I have the honor of chairing this board. I will ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy White.
Hey, good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Hello, Jim Sullivan.
Yes, good evening. I'm Clark Adams.
Also with us this evening is Josh Boucher, who is making sure we go out live to the people of Bennington on CAT TV. We have Nancy Lively, who is preparing to take excellent minutes. And sitting in the audience this evening, we have our town manager, Dan Monks. As you know, these listening sessions are an opportunity for us to hear from the community on subjects outside of a regular agenda. Our topic this evening is the downtown, which is a pretty broad subject, and I'm happy to see so many faces here in the audience. Hopefully we'll get a wide range of views. We'll be kicking it off this evening, as we always do, with a brief presentation related to the subject. Tonight, we have Matt Harrington, the Executive Director of the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce, who will be telling us about their recently released 2025 economic survey. So, Matt, kick us off, please.
Great, and thank you, Select Board, for the invite. And we'll hop right into it. We'll go over, as I said to Tom right before this, I'm not going to read you number by number. It'll go up on the screen. I'll give you some of maybe our narrative and some of my maybe professional opinion on some things, but we'll hop right into it. Just a reminder, the Southwestern Vermont Chamber promotes, leads, and advocates a unified effort on behalf of its members to maintain and improve a healthy business climate and a rewarding quality of life for the whole region. So, I think it's always important for us to say, we were the Bennington Chamber for 109 years. In 2020, we became a regional chamber representing 17 communities plus. We consider Hoosick Falls, we consider Williamstown, we consider up into Rutland and Stratton and those areas as well. But we truly believe that Bennington is the economic hub of the county. And so, I want to somewhat present that tonight. What you'll see as we go through the presentation, through some of the numbers, the first set of numbers will be the county. I've gone in and I've done this presentation with some others around Bennington in the last week. So I've added some red Sharpie numbers for what Bennington-specific businesses filled out. And so that also gives us a barometer of, how does the county fare versus how does Bennington proper. I will also say that it includes all of Bennington. So we're talking about Northside Drive, we're talking about Harwood Hill, we're talking about downtown Bennington. So, you can take that as you will. We're not specific to downtown Bennington, although we know a majority of our businesses are in downtown, and I would also say a majority of the chamber membership in Bennington is also in downtown. So, again, I think of it as a poll. This isn't rock solid. It's more of us to get a feeling, and we've gone out and we've asked people their opinion. I get this a lot, and I do think it's important also to mention this early on. Chambers aren't there to start a restaurant. Chambers aren't there to start a retail. Matt, why don't we have a cheese store downtown? How come we don't have a hotel downtown? I don't know. I'm not starting hotels and cheese stores, although we do have Haberdasher in the crowd, so we thank you for your cheese. But what I do like to think of the chamber as, and I consider this with the BBC here, and I consider this with the Regional Planning Commission, and even as we go up into the county with some of our other partners, that we're really gardeners, right? We're there to make sure the soil is good, that the environment is good for businesses to come here. So all of our efforts at the chamber, all of our efforts at the Bennington Welcome Center, all of our efforts at the Shire's brand, all the efforts of BBC, again, isn't really to start business. It is to create the water, soil, sunlight that needs business to grow. And so just kind of keep that in mind as we go through. A little bit of the outline, what we'll go through tonight in the actual numbers, a little bit of an overview, some demographic stuff, ownership and longevity of businesses, top challenges of businesses, outlook of businesses, how they feel about the economy now, how they feel about the economy in 3 years, and then ways that we might be able to support their growth. Again, just a little bit of background, why this survey and why, as a Chamber of Commerce, do we do this? I think this is about our 4th or 5th year doing this survey. One, it's data-driven. It's not one opinion over the other. We collect all the opinions of the businesses, and we can pull them together in kind of an aggregate to say, in general, this is how most of our business are feeling. And so we like to have fact over opinion. This isn't Matt's thing. It's not my board's thing. This is downtown. This is the business community. It helps guide us. It helps guide the chamber. It's going to help guide the select board. It's going to help guide the citizens to go, never had thought about that. That's interesting. Let's keep that in mind. And then I do think that asking for feedback builds trust. We could sit in a vacuum. The chamber could sit over in a vacuum. BBC could sit in a vacuum. But I think our job is to go out and ask the plants, how much sunlight do you need? Where's the water coming from? Do you need more soil? And so, we believe that, us exchanging with our members is a great way to build that trust and ask them. Methodology, we collected this data in August and September of 2025. Over 100 business owners and nonprofit leaders filled out the survey. And so when you see statistics, you can kind of imagine, okay, out of 100, that makes sense. It's a little bit higher than 100, so if those numbers are a little bit off. And then we collected both qualitative and quantitative, the qualitative being open comments, and the quantitative being the fill in the bubble. A lot of this data is more around the quantitative, the bubble. So again, we took all the aggregate and all the combined answers, and that's what you'll see tonight. Communities represented, again, no surprise there with, quite frankly, a lot of businesses in Bennington, happening in Bennington. The economic hub of the region is Bennington. When you consider Northside Drive, when you consider downtown, when you consider the outskirts. And then Manchester coming alongside next to it, Arlington, Londonderry, you can see on through. There were other towns represented. They fell below the 2%, and I don't think they were worth mentioning, but Dorset's in there, Williamstown is in there, things like that. So that did emerge on the survey. All right, industries. We'll go through this real quick. Again, you can kind of see, again, this is county, so when you see these numbers, the black numbers are going to be county-wide. This is who filled out the survey. And then when we look at Bennington, there's your Sharpie marker, retail at 15, so it's hovering a little bit lower than the county that filled this out, nonprofits, attractions, lodging, dining, and then housing, real estate, all each, education, childcare, manufacturing, advertising. Again, just to kind of give you a demographic. One thing that came up earlier in the week when I was presenting this to another group was, oh, that must be the manufacturing. They must all feel that way. And I'm going, well, just remember that 3% filled out in manufacturing. So that's not a good indicator that all of manufacturing feels like that, because I don't think it represents the fullness of our manufacturing base. You might say that about retail a little bit more, or nonprofits. All right, we'll get into the data now. Business ownership, we do ask some of these kind of identifying things, which is just kind of always interesting. Vermont prides itself on being family-owned businesses, so we have 33% that identify as family-owned in the county, 26% women-owned. We love to ask this question too. We're trying to attract that new young entrepreneur, and so young professional-owned, 6% in the county, veteran-owned, 2%, and other ones that popped up, again, a little bit below 2%, but was BIPOC-owned, LGBTQI+, disabled-owned, and immigrant-owned, and other ones that corporation-owned came up a couple times as well. And then when we look at years in business, again, county-wide, the biggest chunk of that's going to be 20 years plus, which is almost 60%. Then it swoops around to 4 to 10 years at 20.8, 11 to 20 years at 12.9. Whoop. Dan. So that's interesting in and of itself. The comment there, and it's going to mirror itself in even greater in Bennington numbers, is that we have a lot of businesses that are 20 plus. And when you start to look at businesses that are 20 plus, I start to be concerned that, they're going to start to sunset and wind down, and so we want to be paying attention to that. In Bennington, 32% family-owned, so very similar, 25, again, similar to women-owned. A little bit less young professional-owned, which I thought was interesting. Again, thinking that a majority of the action happens in Bennington, I would think that we were a little bit higher along. Again, this is what the survey filled out, so it's not a complete representation. But where this gets interesting, so you've got a little bit more entrepreneurial in the 0 to 1, and even a little bit less in the 1 to 3. A little bit higher in the 11 to 20, which is great because those are stable businesses. They're probably going to be around for a bit, so we're higher than the county. We're at 62.9, which is higher than the 59, as you can see, for 20 years, and we're at 14.5. So again, the thing I would pull from this, pretty good diverse grouping there, but really the 62.9, and you're going to see that theme come up a little bit tonight in terms of aging businesses, and you're going to see staffing and workforce. Here, that's the punchline. You're going to see staffing and workforce come up in Bennington greater than the county. Top challenges facing businesses, again, this is what the survey filled out. Rising costs, again, I think if we all are feeling it right now, we're not too surprised that our businesses are feeling it as well. Recruiting and retaining workers, I will say that those two flipped from last year to this year. And so recruiting and retaining workers has, quite frankly, always been the top marker in the survey as the #1 challenge. It now has been replaced by rising costs. Marketing and gaining customers, 17%, employee cost, 11%, financial limitations, 10. Tariffs come up too, and you could probably start to add in a little bit tariffs plus rising costs. I'm not always sure that tariffs wasn't, some people were filling out rising costs with tariffs in mind. And then other concerns that came up, and you can read those there. Again, where it gets interesting is Bennington's numbers. Rising costs, similar, 28% in recruiting and retaining workers. So almost 10 percentage points above the county. 15%, so again, it's kind of similar. Employee cost wasn't even too much of a concern. Personal extrapolation there is we don't really care about the employee costs. Like, we need workers and we're willing to pay. Or we don't have enough workers, so we're not paying the employee costs as much as we used to. Financial limitations, similar on tariffs. Top challenges in the next 12 to 18 months, so a year out, how are businesses feeling, managing economic uncertainty? Not a whole lot of surprise there, again, at the county level. Staffing at 6%, county level, growing customer and donor bases, fatigue and burnout, financial stability. So, when we look at it from a Bennington perspective, similar in managing economic uncertainty, what do you think staffing is going to be at?
Higher.
Yeah, 18% is concerned in Bennington. 9% in growing customers, fatigue, financial stability. So they actually feel a little bit more financial able, a little bit, higher or lower than the county, but staffing is their major concern. This also came up in Bennington specific. So again, I pulled the survey results and then I pulled Bennington, people that filled out that identified as Bennington businesses. And this was other, that came in 7%, so kind of between fatigue and financial, which is GM Care Board, which we can Green Mountain Care Board, we can imagine who filled out that one. Affordable housing for employees, right? So again, part of the staffing issue is we're trying to attract employees here, they don't have housing. And then Act 73, which is around education and consolidation, which again, was interesting coming from Bennington because oftentimes that's what we hear in the North Shire, more so. But I've heard recently that there's a lot of concern about education and schools in the South Shire as well. Workforce and staffing, when compared to 2024, so we did the survey in 2024, this is how it compares. 32% reported some form of employee growth, again, countywide down 40%, 52, no change, 16 reported a loss of employees. Workforce models, this was a new question we asked, which we thought was interesting. Are you hybrid? Are you seasonal? Are you in person? There were 0 that are fully remote. So that was kind of interesting. Relatively healthy with hybrid work, which was interesting. Now, when we get to Bennington numbers, it's going to look not as great. So 24%. So they're not growing employees as much. around the same amount for no change. We didn't hire, we didn't lose. And then 24% reported a loss of employees. 68% said they're in person in Bennington. 9% said seasonal. Again, that was kind of interesting to me. Countywide, 2%, which would include the North Shire, and we think of Stratton Mountain and Bromley Mountain being in that as seasonal, but Bennington seemed to be very high in the seasonal department. And then 23% hybrid. Hiring challenges, 17% significant difficulty in hiring, 34, some difficulty in hiring, 15, no difficulty, 34, we don't even have open positions, 20% in Bennington, 38% in Bennington, and then 16 and 27. And some of that 27 is we've given up. Again, how I might read some of that, which is we don't even have the position anymore. I know at the Chamber of Commerce we've even done that. We've taken it off and said, just give us time to figure out what our next steps are. Financial outlook, this is, I always joke about this is like Matt's version of, hard money or whatever. It's very simple, report card based. 7% feel excellent, 15% feel really good. B, successful, 42. We do move B- over to generally not well. I don't like any of my businesses doing a B-. We're doing okay, but we could be doing better. I'd rather have you over in the B and up. So as a chamber, we're not satisfied with B-. So that ends up in our generally not well column. 5% there, 19% with ups and downs, C- 7, D not well at all, and then 3% was fear of closure. We do have an F category, which is closure imminent, which nobody fills out. But I will also say we've seen plenty of businesses close, and I've never seen an F on this survey. So obviously they're not, they're not completely telling us what's going on. I add all those up. Hey, generally successful. Our businesses, 64%, feel generally good from the county perspective, and then we add all those up. Generally not well, 36%. Now Bennington numbers. I think this is encouraging. 11%. So you are higher by a good percentage based on the county. I think Bennington feels like they're moving forward, even though day to day we have our hiccups and we have bad press or whatever you want to throw at it. I think in general businesses feel good about being downtown and over on Northside Drive. 13% really good, and then 41%. So somewhat comps there, and then a little bit greater in the excellent category. It doesn't move that number too much down at the bottom, but I do obviously like more of my businesses feeling like they're in the A category at excellent. B- 7%, ups and downs 20, C- 6%, 0% at not doing well. Again, I don't love B- through C-, but I'll take nobody feeling that way. And then fear of closure was 2% in Bennington. And so again, didn't move the numbers too much, but I appreciated that even our B- was a little bit higher. So I think I would surmise that Bennington feels a little bit like it's the wind's at their back. Is southwestern Vermont and Vermont a good place to operate? This is, again, countywide. 90% of southwestern Vermont is a good place to operate. That's what our businesses filled out. This is one of those questions we get all the time, or we read on Facebook, or we hear grumblings, and it's probably one of the reasons we started doing the survey, which is when I go around and we collectively gather people's information, I feel like they're all saying it in a little bit of a vacuum or a little bit of a silo. What if we collected everybody's personal opinion by themselves? And I think there's a really great positive behavioral statistic, which is, you know what, you think everybody's going to like to run a business in Vermont and southwestern Vermont, but in fact, 90% of the businesses surveyed like running a business in southwestern Vermont, and equally, 89% think Vermont is a good place to operate. I will say that jumped up that did jump up double points from last year. So people, for some reason, again, you never know who's going to fill out the survey year to year, but they felt much better about Vermont being a good place to operate. Maybe that's some politically motivated as well. At least we're in Vermont, kind of feeling. And then how do you feel in the next 3 years? So down a little bit. We always expect that. 75% in southwestern Vermont is a good place to operate, and 69% Vermont is a good place to operate. And again, I think not even the opinion, I would say the caveat there is I believe that 75% is down about 5 points from last year. Again, federal things going on, politics going on. I think, a lot of our businesses, my assumption would be, are looking at the next 3 years, tariffs, rising costs, political uncertainty, kind of being concerned at the very least. Bennington, 92% felt like it was a great place to run a business. Okay, again, Bennington, take heed, take encouragement. 92% of you like running a business in southwestern Vermont, in Bennington specifically. And then 89% still felt Vermont is a good place to operate. 70% said, 3 years from now, not sure, which again is usually Bennington, been around doing this for 10 years. We tend to be very conservative and kind of measure our steps, and so we're going to be very cautious about how the next 3 years are, a little bit more than the county, and then 62% with Vermont as a whole. Retirement closure, this would be one that I would start to pay attention to, everybody, and Jeannie and I have talked about this. I think you can go to the Four Corners and you could probably look down each street and go, well, that person's no spring chicken. They're going to start to retire in the next couple of years. So we ask respondents, do you plan to retire in the next 1 to 3 years? And this was 12% of respondents. And that was up from 5% in 2024. So again, take 100 people filled this out, and 12% of that's concerning. And then you take the membership of the chamber, around 400, and you take 12% of that in the next 3 years. That's very concerning. And then Bennington was 11, so you're about on par with the county as a whole. We've got these great businesses that started in the 70s and the 80s, and they're still chugging along. We know them. We can look down our main streets, and we've got to find ways, the town of Bennington, the BBC, the chamber, we need to find ways to, A, help them land softly. They should retire. They earned it. Land softly, and how do we create systems where either we can have new young entrepreneurs come into town and potentially new young entrepreneurs that have turnkey solutions, that we've prepped that business to retire, or at least the business owner, and now a young entrepreneur can walk into a retail store that has 30, 50 years of customer base and has it kind of figured out. So we still got to work on that one. All right, as we wind down the presentation, services that would be support the growth, better destination marketing. No surprise there, to be honest, and Jeannie and I could probably think that more than everybody else. Like, we get that question all the time. How do we get people in our doors? How do we get foot traffic? How do we get people to Bennington? And how do we get people to Bennington County? Improved cell service, no surprise there. You can drive from Hannaford to downtown Bennington and know that we need improved cell phone service. Improved internet Wi-Fi, which again was kind of interesting that I came up as the number 3 one, because in my mind, through Fidium Fiber and the CUD, you have Wi-Fi if you want Wi-Fi, especially in downtown and throughout the county. So that was kind of interesting that it ticked that far up. Transportation and infrastructure improvement. I think any good business wants that. They want sidewalks, they want paved roads, they want beautification of their downtowns. And then networking with other businesses, which was great, for organizations like us, because that's what we do. We want to make sure businesses feel connected. So that's one of their ways that we could support their growth. And then more professional services. So what it kind of sounded like, bookkeeping and technical skills and things like that. AI and digital training was also there as well. In Bennington, 36%, so a little bit under again. That was kind of surprising to me, because usually Bennington is pretty strong on its feeling towards destination marketing. Improved cell phone service was a little bit higher, no surprise there. Improved internet was about on par. Transportation and infrastructure, a little bit lower, but still in the same category. Networking with other businesses was a little bit higher, which is great. And those two are similar, that 17% came in for professional services. All right, here's the takeaway. I did this, again, like I said, for Bennington specific. And so here, if I were to give the select board and the community kind of some things to chew on and think about that we poll, and nothing's going to come surprising because I just showed you all the data. It's harder challenge to hire, recruit, and retain staffing than the county as a whole in Bennington. You do have a little bit better business financial outlook. Your optimism could help lead the county, and I think just again what I will say anecdotally from going all to the other 16 communities throughout the county, they're looking at Bennington. They are, I don't want to say jealous, but they're watching because they see Ben High getting done. They see Putnam Block getting done. They see a skate park getting done. They see things getting done in Bennington. And so, again, I would encourage you to say, lead the county and help ride that wave. You've got the wind at your back a little bit. It is a little bit more pessimistic than the next 3 years. That's fine. Again, as you guys continue to have quick wins and, move along on projects, I think you'll carry the county with you. And then strong desire for better marketing, and then investment is kind of how I took away the infrastructure and transportation, kind of investment things. And we know that with Bennington. Again, I go back to the Putnam and the recent skate park and the splash pad. People love that kind of stuff on the whole. All right, and then I will wrap up with this. This is just from the Chamber's perspective. We will continue to communicate and advocate is what we're doing here tonight, just to make sure people have the facts. We will build out, programming. We'll work with Jeannie. We'll work with John Burnham up at the Manchester Business Association and our other partners to develop programs that respond to the identified needs. One of the good examples of that, a couple months ago, we just did a succession planning panel with the Berkshire Bank, and we did it up in the North Shire. Very well attended, 30 businesses plus, which again, it's one of those things that it's like AA. You make sure that it's anonymous because nobody wants to know that you're kind of considering closing. But it was great, and we want to do more programmatic things like that, which give our businesses the tool, the knowledge, and the information. And then finally, meeting our member needs requires resources for the chamber, partnerships, and financial support. So again, we have a new membership model coming out. People are getting that information this week, and some of that will help spur on some new programs that we want to align with the survey results. And with that, I will stop. And then, Tom, I don't know if you want me to still stand up here or have a general conversation or answer some questions.
Does anyone have any questions around the presentation? Nancy, go ahead.
Hi, Matt. I didn't realize you've expanded into Rutland.
We consider the 17 communities of Bennington County to be kind of our home base, but we do have members from Rutland. We do have members from Hoosick Falls. We do have members from Williamstown. There's no hard border on our membership.
Does Rutland have a Chamber of Commerce?
It does. It has kind of a community, it's called CEDAR. It's the Economic Development Corporation merged with their chamber. So oftentimes businesses, and I'll use a good example of like Oliver Ford. They're based in Rutland. They have a shop in Rutland. They also have a shop down here in Bennington. So Jose belongs to both the Rutland Chamber and the Bennington, the Southwestern Vermont Chamber to get activity in both counties.
And do you know roughly how many paying businesses belong to the chamber?
My chamber?
Yeah.
Yeah, around 375, give or take. It's always in flux.
And you said you had about a little over 100 people participate?
Yep.
So about 60 from the town of Bennington?
Something like that. Yeah, I'd have to
And
go back.
would you know roughly how many businesses in Bennington are members of the chamber?
Our members?
Yeah.
I would say 60%. So if you take 375 and 60% of that, it's a good majority. Because, again, this chamber got started in Bennington. It's been here for 109 years before we went regional. So it makes sense that it's, A, the core of our membership, and B, a lot of businesses exist in Bennington. Not as much in Rupert, not as much in Sunderland. So, yeah.
And just last question, destination marketing was about 36 to 39%. I think one of the concerns I have, remembering that the chamber was local for decades, now that it's spread out, it concerns me sometimes I'm reading about Bennington and other places. If somebody's only here for a day or a weekend, I'm concerned they may go someplace other than come to Bennington. So I'm interested to understand how you're doing the destination marketing to get them to Bennington.
Well, we're doing it for the whole region. And what we know from travelers, I think, and all of us have traveled in some time, that rarely do we go to one town and that town has all the amenities that we want to go to. And so what we have found time and time again, and we run the Welcome Center, we have over 100,000 people go through that Welcome Center. We have trained staff there. We have my staff down at 100 veterans. People come and either stay in Bennington or they stay in Manchester or Dorset, and they travel the region. They go. When you go to Cape Cod, you don't stay in one place. When you go to the Berkshires, you don't go to just Williamstown. You're going to check out Lee, Lenox. You're going to come up to Bennington, Pownell. And so what we find is that it actually is a better way to do marketing, because we're saying, hey, in our backyard, we have Hildene. In our backyard, we have J.J. Hapgoods or H.N. Williams or J.K. Adams. And also, down in Pownell, we have the Apple Barn, and on through. And even in Williamstown, we have that. And so what we find is travelers do a lot more corridor traveling than coming to Bennington, spending a long weekend or probably a week, and having Bennington meet all their needs. Okay. So that's what we have found. And then I would say, just to that point, Nancy, and this does come up, and this came up when we were becoming regional, which was, well, if you become regional, who's going to do our marketing? And I think that is a good question for the Select Board, and the Select Board has dealt with that. You guys have set aside funds to support whatever it is, Vermont Begins Here, the BBC, other campaigns. And so when the Chamber can come alongside and help, we just got that large tourism grant last year. We did a lot of filming. We had actors come up from New York City to participate in Bennington. Where we can come alongside that, great. But also Bennington has to fight for itself too, as much as Manchester does and did. And so when Manchester had that same question when the Chamber closed, they formed the Manchester Business Association and took their option tax and took a portion of that option tax and put it against marketing. And my understanding, just from talking with John, their executive director, is over the last 5 years, at least digital marketing has done very, very well for them.
Anyone else? All right. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, for coming today.
Absolutely.
I think this has been something that's been on a few people's minds. I'm not really sure why this hasn't happened. I had some ideas. There might be some kinks that may be able to be worked out. But the Welcome Center, that's something that is beautiful here in our backyard. And, New York has the Welcome Centers. They have weekend markets. And I'm not sure how that might be able to be worked out with our Welcome Center. Do you have any update on that?
So a couple thoughts there. I know PJ, our manager, is very interested in things like that, and I know that she's working on something like that. It gets a little bit more difficult because the Chamber only employs the Welcome Center staff, which was a very hard-fought battle more than 10 years ago to make sure that Benningtonians would represent Bennington at the Welcome Center. But the state owns the land, and the state owns the building. And so oftentimes when I have members come up and say, why don't we do mixers up there? Or why can't we have why can't Garlic Fest be up there? Because the state has a lot of requirements on that. And so I know that's kind of the immediate answer, is why we haven't done it in the past, is to go through the regulations of having something, even if the state allowed it, is a lot. But I also know that my manager is very interested in stuff like that, because New York does that, right? They have the apples coming out right now at their Welcome Center. So
Quick follow-up. So that
Yes.
would just be somebody at the state level, state commerce to talk to?
It would be somebody at what I would say is, let me connect you with PJ and see how far she's gotten. And
Okay.
then what it would be is probably twofold. One, you'd work with kind of the Department of Transportation. They're the ones that oversee the actual Welcome Center.
Okay.
And then who's going to run that market? So I think some of the other question is, again, we're gardeners. We don't start markets. So again, if there's somebody that wants to go run a market, and, again, I think some of what we've witnessed in the last couple of years with the Bennington Farmers Market has been concerning, right? Is that, I know it's starting up again, but I think the numbers were bad at the Bennington Farmers Market. So now we want to go start another market up at the Welcome Center. So again, I think it's who's going to run that market is some of the question too, Sarah.
So the Department of Transportation is the contact?
Yeah, and I can get you the
Okay.
commissioner,
All right, thank you.
or her office at least.
Thanks.
Yep.
Matt, thanks a lot. I don't know if you're able to stick around
Yeah,
for the
I'll stick
rest of
around.
this.
Yep.
I do want to move out to community comments, because that is why we're here tonight. So who is here that would have something they would like to share with this board on the subject of the downtown? It's always hardest to go first. I see people out there that have a lot of opinions all the time because you tell me them when I go into your stores. So, all right.
I like this presentation and everything, but there's nothing in it that gives anybody an idea to start a new business or start a new cause. This summer, I go down to Martin's Mini Mart out lot and sit out there, and they're all friends of mine. And I saw so many of these big RV trailers, I mean huge, $1 million trailers going by, and I don't know where they're going. They're either passing through and going to New Hampshire or whatever. And I'd like to see somebody look into an RV park where people could come here to Bennington, stay for a weekend, stay for a week, stay for a month, because there's not a lot of good motels anymore, as you can, why, the way they used them over the last few years for housing. But Gladstone there, if somebody get a hold of Gladstone, who owns Johnson Controls, that could be a beautiful thing right off the highway. It's got a smack letter and all that stuff, and you couldn't live there permanently, but you could stay there. And maybe Clark, who travels around, or I'm sure Ed has seen it, and other people, you go down to Florida, and you can go down there and spend a month in one area, a week, or whatever they want with these RVs. And there's already water and sewer, I believe, hooked up there and everything else. But I think we need to bring ideas, and I was hoping the chamber would bring some ideas that have worked in other areas of the country, to say, here's what we need to bring to Bennington. I truly believe we need something in downtown Bennington to be a centerpiece that people think of, especially in the good weather, to come and spend time. Let's have a good day at Bennington. Think of Bennington as a fun place to be, not just seeing churches open up and all these nonprofits and everything else. But when you have a Mayfest or this Oktoberfest, people know we're here. They know how to get here, they know we're here, they get all that information on the internet. So what do? They come here. So what if we invest in ourselves and put something in downtown? Don't know what. I'd like to see a Ferris wheel, and all of you might think I'm out of my mind, and I probably am. But if you see London do it, and I think there's other areas in the country when you watch the Travel Channel and History Channel, they all have Ferris wheels. And people like to have fun. We don't have a nightlife here anymore since Doug's closed, which was a bunch years ago, but Doug's was a little crazy, but there's no place for anybody to go and entertain, have a drink or dance, or have a little interlude with themselves. And we've got to start thinking of downtown Bennington as a destination point to have fun. You don't need another free store, you don't need another church. Our grand list is going to go down drastically if all these places are able to say we're nonprofits. So that's the thing. I'd like to see some talk about that. And I was hoping more people from the downtown would be here tonight and say, here's what they would like to see. Other ideas. I mean, I watch TV a lot, especially in the winter, but I'm no genius, but I know that when I go downtown as an old man in a wheelchair, sometimes I'm bored. And if you can bore an old man in a wheelchair, make him bored, you're hurting. And some people are young. There's not too many young people on our board anymore, and Sarah's young, but Tom isn't young, and geez, Jim's older than dirt. And so anyway, what I'm saying is, I was hoping you people are the leaders. You people would come up with some ideas. Do some investigating yourselves. And the chamber, I thought, would bring some ideas and say, here's what's worked in other parts of Vermont. Here's what's worked in other parts of the world. Why don't we think of investing in ourselves? And I'll also go a little bit farther, because not too many other people are probably going to talk, but I think we ought to, and some people are going to just drop, I think we need to re-look at the option tax. And I will probably support it this time if it's done the correct way. And if it's geared to be for certain things or one thing, and it has a 3-year grace period where it will fade if we don't re-vote it, so it's not stuck with it. That'll be easy to sell to the people and say what the option tax is going to be. I'm not for taxes. I hate taxes like everybody else. But I talked to Scott up there in Manchester, and he said to me, why aren't you guys using it? Especially now that Bennington's, Northside Drive is bringing in a lot of money between Walmart and all those places. And it's something to rethink. But I really think we need to take, and ask the voter, if you got an idea for downtown, and we think it's going to work, it's hot, go to the voter and ask for a separate vote and say, would you like to invest in yourselves here? And see what they say. These surveys here are all great, but that's all just numbers. I want ideas. And if the people in Bennington, they're not stupid. If they see an idea they like, they'll support it. And I just want downtown Bennington to be a center point. And right now, there's nothing down there. And as you guys have talked about weeks ago, all the empty properties, all the empty stores, and it shouldn't be that way. So anyway, that's my 2 cents for now.
Thanks.
If I could respond here.
Clark, you want to respond quickly?
Please. As Mike so eloquently said, I get around, I travel a lot, but like Mike too, and my wife will tell you, 2 a.m. there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. What surprises me, I see a lot of these travel shows I watch, I see pictures and I'll see Route 7, and I see people driving through Bennington. They're not stopping, they're going other places. And although there's one gentleman who has something like 3 or 4 million followers, goes all over the country, all over the world. He said, going to Vermont next episode. So of course I stayed up till 3 in the morning to watch him. And he set up in the campground in Pownell. I didn't know they had a campground, an RV center in Pownell. That's where he stayed. And he said, and we're on our way to Bennington. So I said, all right, I got to the good part. So he goes up the road, Monument Boulevard, going to the monument. He gets there, it's closed. He just turns around and leaves. On his way out of town going north, he stops at a gas station, which we all know on the corner of County Road and North Street, and he says, look at this, I've never seen these old rundown gas pumps anywhere else in the country. That's what he was focusing on. He's in our town at this less than stellar looking gas station, and then he left Bennington. So I was like stunned. It's like, a national audience, and our hallmark item here, the monument, the guy shows up there and it's closed, so he just turns around and leaves. So, we kind of have to do something to attract people. And when they get here, make them say, hey, I want to come back. And how we can do that, I don't have the answers, but I'm willing to support anybody who does. But I've seen several of these travel logs where people pass right through our town. I look up and I see, and the worst part, one guy stopped in Troy. I said, oh my God, you drove right through Bennington and you stopped at Troy. Come on, that's painful for those of us who know the area. So, Mike's right, we got to do some things, and I don't know what or how we can do it, but there's enough smart people in this town, enough people with strong backs that we got to work together to do that.
I will say where I work, Clark, I've noticed a dramatic uptick in tourist traffic this year compared to last year. So they are coming to town, and they're at least stopping in and having a beer and something to eat. So, Jeannie?
Hi, Jeannie Jenkins, Bennington. Mike, I thought I was going to completely disagree with you until you started talking about the option tax. Good man. So, and I do think, don't worry. And I do think that we have a lot of attractions, and I think the new skate park is fabulous, and anytime you go by there, you can see how many people we are bringing into this community. All summer, you can look at the splash pad and you can see kids there, families there. I am so amazed that there has not been a rear-ending episode right there as people watch the splash pad. I do think we have attractions. We also have things we need to fix. And, one of the areas where we've already started exploring again is that vacant property tax or ordinance. The BBC spearheaded the ordinance we have right now. And at the time, our concern was really more blight than economic development. So that ordinance really focused on making sure that we have electricity, that we have water so that, the place isn't going to burn down, and that we can secure the building. And that was actually a hard-fought fight to get realtors and property managers and owners to even go that far. So we should think about how we do that as we think about how to put teeth in it. And I get that it's complicated. I thought, the presentation that Paul Dansrow did a couple weeks ago was useful, but I also know that other communities, Montpelier, Burlington, we can look out of state again. At the time we did that, Vermont was much more prescriptive and there was very little we could do, but something must have changed now that we can put teeth in the vacant property ordinance. So I would strongly suggest that we do that. I think the reasons for doing that are different now. We obviously health and safety matter, but I think the business incubation piece of it is really starting to matter. There's an idea that's been floated for at least 25 years that I'm aware of, both at the state and the local level, looking at how to help young entrepreneurs, and I was happy to see Matt's numbers. Matt, that was a great presentation. On this, what do you do when someone is really green? A lot of our business owners, small business owners, come from a family of business owners. So they have some experience in it. If you're doing this for the first time, and even if you're not, and I think we have many examples in this room, I'm glad to see so many people from Main Street here. You do your homework, you do a business plan, and then you get in the store and you see how it works. And sometimes people gravitate to things that you didn't expect. And sometimes you need to rearrange your space, you need, all that costs money to figure out how you bring in customers and how you keep them coming back. And so any help, we have the town revolving loan, and that is very useful, but that is we aren't adding money to that loan process. Well, the only way we add money is when people pay back the loans, and we know that the payback rate is over 95%. So it's really high, but it's a 30-year cycle. So as money goes out, it takes a while for it to come back in. So I think we should be looking at how do we help people that are new do more. It might be subsidized rent. Originally, when we started talking about business incubators, we were thinking a space, and BCIC many years ago had a space where you could come in and get your business going. That was more manufacturing and sort of hands-on work kind of businesses. If we're looking at stores or restaurants or some place like the Haberdasher or Gamer's Grotto or Gift Garden, all of these, that doesn't fit in that traditional incubator model so well. So it may be just looking how we subsidize what we have on Main Street, and we certainly have inventory there. But the inventory we have there, and I have recently had a reason to sort of look at this, we have some great small spaces that are great for new small businesses. And they may be owned by people who had businesses, aged out, didn't have a succession plan, and basically they closed the front door. And we all can think of spots, particularly on North Street, that are great locations, but they're still full of all the materials that were there 30 years ago. So thinking about how to use that loan program more effectively to help those people, those businesses, clear out what they have so they can lease to new people would be really helpful. And that's going to require more money than we have in our revolving loan program right now. But I do think it's very important, because in some cases, I think they just close the door because the owner died, or, you know, they closed the shop and they owned the building, so they could just close the door. And so it's not great. It doesn't look great on Main Street, but more than that, I think economic development is really hurting because we can't find spaces. Between the people who don't want to rent because it's a tax write-off and the people who can't clear out their spaces because they don't have the wherewithal to do it, that's really hurting us. So we do need to identify another funding source, which is where I agree with Mike. I think we need to think about how we're going to do that, and I think we also should be thinking we need to have another 10-year plan. We've just finished the last 10-year plan, and we see, and it's coming to fruition now, and we're seeing all these great improvements in the area. We need to do that same thing again, and I think particularly with SVC transformation as that goes forward, and also the Walloomsac Inn, those are very high-end properties that are developing in our community, and we should be ready to take advantage of that situation when we can. So I strongly urge us to go back and look at the local option tax, which is a 1% tax. It can be on meals and rooms, which is absolutely tourism. It can be on alcohol. It can be on luxury items. You can do one, you can do all three. We just need to do it something. And as we move into that, we need to have that in place so that when we start seeing higher end tourism here, we can take advantage of that. If you look at Manchester and Wilmington, I'm glad that you talked to Scott. Those are high-end markets, and Scott moved from, the manager in Manchester moved from Wilmington to Manchester, so he's had experience in 2 communities. But there are dozens of communities that are not wealthy. Rutland, I mean, you can, all over the state, there are dozens of communities that are not wealthy that have effectively used the 1% tax, so option tax. That it is not a burden on the local community. It's really designed to tap those coming into our community so that we are getting some benefit from it. And quite honestly, I think we should be pouring that into how do we garden this community, make this a garden for economic development. We have the wherewithal to do that. So that's what I wanted to share, and I thank you for having the presentation at the front end. I think that really set the stage, and it really gave us a lot of information, and I hope we can move forward on some of these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, sure. Then you're next, Gene.
Just something to think about, Jeannie, and there's a lot there. But it's not only tourists, and I'm very excited about what's going to happen, and that we're potentially really at the beginning of a real tourism boom. You also have a lot of people coming from Hoosick Falls, Williamstown, Rutland, Manchester. I know a lot of those people that drive down here to shop at Home Depot, Walmart, get their coffee, go grocery shopping, go back. And so they're using all of Bennington's roads. They're using our services. When we plow, they're using our services. So just, I think the community also should think about, as you think potentially about an option tax, that, or anything, just that, yes, there are people flying in from all over and coming here to use the great amenities of Bennington as tourists, but you'll have a lot of out-of-towners in Bennington, and there's an argument that they should be helping Bennington move along with some type of financial benefit. Thanks.
Gene, you had something?
Yeah, a lot of it's about BBC.
Yeah, go to the mic, please.
I can't believe I'm actually willingly coming up here. Because, you know, I'm not a fan of it. I will say that I just spent my third, I think everybody knows me, but Jeannie Manchoni from the BBC. I live in Pownell. This is my third season at the BBC for the fall foliage, and it's been the busiest in 3 years. I didn't come in with any numbers. I can go through our book. We have a guest book and tally that for you. But I will say the majority of our visitors are coming from the south. They're actually, a lot of them, staying in Williamstown and Lenox and coming up to Bennington for the day or overnight. I don't see as much coming in from New York. So I do think we're missing a big opportunity there. I know there's a couple people in this room that may clap about this, but I, for one, really believe we need signage coming in from New York State before 279 branches off. Not a tacky big billboard, but maybe something that's very either artsy or just very historic looking. I think it should point out that we have so much history in downtown Bennington, we're really becoming, if not already are, I should say, an arts and cultural center. We have great shopping and dining. I mean, everybody who comes in, they don't know where to go by the time our docents get done with them because they're excited about everywhere. Some kind of signage that portrays that, like, they should stop here. They should stop in Bennington and get them off of going up 279. It's really invaluable to our town. It has to be done. I mean, it may not be, but it has to be. So that's one thing that I'm seeing from people coming in, again, coming from the south. Let's see. A big thing I'm noticing, and I get a lot of feedback from visitors, they come here, they make a long weekend of it. Some of them are traveling off weekend, probably for rates, and they'll come in on a Sunday and be going home on a Thursday or a Wednesday, and everything's closed. All the historical sites they want to come and see are closed. The museum, the Robert Frost Museum, the monument, like, they can't go and do what they're coming here to do. And I feel like at least during certain seasons, we should be accommodating, and although it takes staffing, we should be open in these places when people are traveling here, which is fall foliage mainly. They're very disappointed. Some of them are angry, and we're trying to find other things for them to go and do. And I think that that's something that should be looked at. Even like Park McCullough, the places I'm trying to send them are closed. And I'm not bashing those places. I used to work at one. I just wish that they were remaining open during season. Campgrounds, I live in Pownell, and there's a great one there. It's a little hidden gem, and Woodford. And we have had a lot of RV travelers this summer, more than I saw the last 2. And I also found out that if you're an Elks member, you can actually stay in their parking lot if you have an RV. I did not know that. So we have a lot of that opportunity, and maybe that's some marketing that we should be doing. It's not just about staying in a hotel, although we want our hotels to have business. There's a lot of other great ways to come here and stay here. Now I'm going to go off onto vacant buildings. That is a really big thing for me, but I feel like my hands are tied. I have had people come from other towns. I've had calls from people out of the area, out of state, asking about wanting to open a small business in our downtown. So I'll give them the information I might have, which I'm getting from a window, like a sign. And most of the time what they're hearing is that I'm not interested in renting my property. That's really bad. Because now I look foolish because I've just sent them there. But as a whole, we should not have this many buildings downtown vacant without a really good reason and for the amount of time that they're vacant. I know I've mentioned I know I had talked to Jackie at one point about it, but I don't really know all the rules on this, but I feel maybe there should be some penalty when something's, vacant for 10 years and the landlord's saying, I'm not interested in renting it. Because that's hurting the businesses that do care and do have their buildings running and kept nice. It's not right. I feel like there's something that needs to be done. Sorry about the hands, I'm Italian. I'm flying with them. Couldn't there be a term of vacancy? And after that term, it's no longer, there has to be something done, like maybe not a write-off or whatever. Maybe there's a fund that at a certain point that there's an extra charge that's created, and then that's put into some kind of fund, maybe for facade improvement or cleaning up the ones that, you know, are empty or aren't clearly owned by anybody anymore. Just some ideas. The Potters, I miss having them so much. Now, this is another thing that, like, people come here and don't know they're closed. They're coming here to go there. And it's heartbreaking because it's a missed opportunity. And I know, you know, the owner has been at it for a very long time, and they're still operating, but just not without a storefront. If we could even get those pieces into a storefront or something like at Midnight Madness, I would transport the stuff to put it in one of our vacant stores for Midnight Madness, because we would draw thousands of more people, and our Midnight Madness would be Midnight Madness again. But they were a beacon, like people came here just for them. And we can't go make her open up again, but I would love to see that storefront going again, because I just think it would really benefit the whole town. I think that's all I have, but I don't know if anybody wants to ask me about the tourism part of who we're seeing, but it really is coming from the south, and a lot of people. And a lot of people are doing the Berkshires and Bennington, like in a day or two trip. They're like maybe driving up from Connecticut. So advertising, marketing there might be beneficial as well. But my biggest thing is that sign before 279. And I know Chuck is on board with that. Something. Oh, you've talked to me about it. We're missing out there too. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I really want to keep hearing from the public right now, if that's okay. We're a little over time, so who wants to go? I see Chris standing up.
Sure. Chris Maxey, Bennington. I own Haberdasher with Brandy Lesser back there. So a lot of the items that I wanted to touch on were already touched upon. The biggest one being the vacant property tax, which I know you've probably all heard me talk about quite a bit, or some sort of vacant property tax. There's just so many properties where it's not even possible to rent, as was said, and it just is it's a terrible look. And I think at some point the town needs to think about how to get folks to pool resources to be able to buy those properties from those landowners, because they're going to continue to use it as a way to, as a tax haven, as a tax write-off for years to come. So it's not like it's going to change anytime soon. My day job, I'm an accountant, so I look at, I specialize in the restaurant industry, and so I look at those financials every single day. I know what people are looking for in terms of spaces when they're thinking about expansion. And the thing that I continue to see that Bennington suffers from is a lack of available small footprint real estate. For someone like me to come in and to open our shop, it was just for the merchandise alone, it was a $35,000 investment. And we have a smaller property. It's only 1,600 square feet, as opposed to some of the bigger properties, which are 2 to 3 times that size. And so a lot of millennials, if you're looking to get younger people into Main Street on Bennington, they're going to want something a lot smaller, that they could perhaps operate an online business at the same time, not necessarily have to fill up such a big space, because millennials don't have those kind of resources. And it's a very different business environment today than it was, 10, 15 years ago, where you could buy $35,000 worth of inventory on credit from the suppliers. That just doesn't happen anymore. So the splitting up of a lot of those commercial spaces is really would have a lot of, more of a profound effect on getting younger people into town and opening businesses. If you use the revolving loan program for landlords so that they could subdivide those spaces, that would get those spaces rented, but also allow them to do something that maybe they're a little bit too cash strapped to be able to do, because not all of these folks that are on Main Street that own these properties are wealthy. Some of them are definitely have inherited these properties and are kind of strapped for cash to do that sort of renovation. The third thing is public bathrooms. And I heard this from a lot of other business owners on Main Street. Any of these events where they maybe don't have anything brought in, or even the ones where they do, we're constantly bombarded to use our bathrooms. And it goes even farther beyond that, because one of the things I did not quite expect when I was opening a business on Main Street was that I was going to have to clean up human excrement from behind my shop. And that's happened 3 times in 1 year. So that sort of thing, that has to happen. We can't continue doing this. It's really unfortunate. But that is a bare human necessity for Bennington to have. I also am pretty deeply concerned about the amount of nonprofits that are coming into Bennington. The fish fry, the pharmacy, the old bank, the Safford Mills, just in the last 6 months are all now owned and operated by nonprofits. And I'm not just concerned about the lack of real estate revenue that the town might generate from that, but also the sales tax revenue. That's one of the things that we don't talk about, is that's a lot of sales tax revenue that's not going to be generated anymore in perpetuity. And so either some sort of, and it's not to say that these nonprofits don't serve a public good, that they aren't useful, and that they are great for our town. However, there's plenty of space to occupy that isn't our 4 corners. And with such limited amounts of available retail space to choose from, that number continues to dwindle because they're being purchased by nonprofits and then continuing to sit vacant. And the storefronts, many of them, sit vacant for years or completely masked up so that it looks like it's barren, right? The last 2 are fairly small. One of them is, again, the billboards on your way in from New York. One of them is religious. 2 of them are Manchester, and one of them is fireworks for New Hampshire. And they're all fairly cheap. I've looked at them. They're not expensive, but it seems like a relatively small price to pay for the town to redirect that one of those, at least for tourism, at least away from Manchester, And then the final thing is, I do hear a lot of folks that are a little bit concerned with how dark Main Street is in the evening, particularly this time of year. We were, I think, many years ago when we came up with the sign ordinances and the facade ordinances, we were very concerned about light pollution, but I think that pendulum maybe swung a little bit too far in the other direction, because some people don't really feel all that safe in the winter months beyond the hours of 5. And so if it was lit a little bit better, if perhaps there was more signage that was brighter lit, it would show or signify to the people of Bennington that Main Street is open for business and that you're perfectly safe walking down the street at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Chris. Who wants to go next? Bruce?
Bruce Lee Clark, Vice Chair of the Town's Energy Committee. And this came out of a conversation just last Saturday as we were sitting at Harvest Fest and looking up and down the Main Street, the chair and I. And we were wondering about the relative age of the buildings of downtown, knowing that all of Bennington has pretty old structures. So this is really a discussion about infrastructure and about planting. And is the garden good enough to plant in? Is it going to be easy enough for a new entrepreneur to come in and then pay extraordinary heat bills? Some folks, I have no idea what you spent on the building and all of its infrastructure, but my guess is it was not cheap, right? I mean, it may pay in the long run. In fact, it will pay in the long run, but it's hard to do that. So Chris and I basically thought that we should be offering our services to any of the downtown businesses to, in fact, assist them if they want to do some work on energy in their buildings, if they are their buildings. And everybody's situation is slightly different. There are landlords who live here, there are landlords who don't live here, there are landlords who will willingly let their tenants do work, there are those who won't. But there are also programs around the state that allow for and help businesses as well as individuals. So it seems to me our job, and I just wanted to use this time to let folks know that we're going to take this part seriously. Our job is to try to get you as connected as possible to those sources of income and information that will allow for the transformation of a number of the older buildings in this town, particularly in downtown, that are 100 to 120 and 130 years old. Even the ones that are newer are not really that so new that they couldn't stand an audit and finding out how they could do better. I'm really pleased, I can't believe I'm even saying this, that we've heard about the local option tax tonight. Because while the revolving loan fund is a source, it seems to me, of some income, of some monies for some of this work, it's certainly not remotely enough. Jeannie's absolutely right. It's a long turnaround, particularly at the interest rate that we're wanting to loan it out at. So I just want to say that the Town Energy Committee is ready to do what it can to assist any downtown merchant or any downtown building owner in improving their energy footprint so that we can in fact get as many of these businesses filled as humanly possible and to make it a viable business for young entrepreneurs. That seems to me is the call.
Thank you, Bruce. Is there anyone that hasn't spoken yet before I let Mike go up a second time? Go. Up. Yep. Up.
You go first. Hi, I just want to be quick. I'm Brandy from Haberdasher. So the only thing that I wanted to mention. Oh, sorry. So my only concern actually is just the, how do I word it? So the speed of the traffic and the noise of the traffic on Main Street. So, having been on Main Street for about a year now, I'm really troubled with the fact that it's hard to have your door open without really excessive vehicle noise, either from a car not having a muffler, or from someone excessively accelerating down the street. And then to kind of further that, I have had quite a number of people who have come in actual distress over almost being hit by a vehicle on Main Street from somebody going too fast or not stopping. So one thing I wanted to maybe throw out is something like better lighting or speed bumps perhaps. Something that would make Main Street a little bit more user-friendly for people who are not just driving through. Thank you, that's it.
Thanks, Brent. Now you, sir.
Thank you. One of my local jokes is there's two kinds of money around here. new money that come and invest it, and old money and they don't part with it. And to start a new business, that requires an entrepreneur. Chris, with all due respect, if accountants were entrepreneurs, they'd all be in business. You're the exception. So the entrepreneur is a leader. For those of you who don't know me, you don't want to. But suffice it to say, I took a storefront on New York's Lower East Side, national. So, as I like to tell people, don't tell me what can't be done. Who here has a business downtown?
I need you
Please
to talk
talk
into the
into the
mic, we can't hear you.
microphone.
Who here has, by a show of hands, who has a business downtown? Do you feel you're getting enough traffic?
What does he say? Well, I'm sorry, what did you
Do
say?
you feel you're getting enough traffic? Anyway, not to beat a dead horse, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. And I agree, I think it's a shame that going east, out of Hoosick, there are 4 major billboards and Bennington doesn't exist. Moving right along, drugs. Now, I'm in Main Street Antiques, okay, and we see a lot of people, yes, coming from all over the country. A lot of people really like living here. Oh, I don't know, like me. And I apologize, but I could live wherever I want. I choose here for all the reasons that Mike is talking about. So, yes, that needs to be capitalized. Now, people, and I kissed the Blarney Stone twice, probably shows. So people come here and they're thinking on one particular couple who were seriously considering moving their business here, went through 108 hires in 3 months. And why didn't that work? Drugs. So I would prevail on you to prevail on our elected legislators to change the laws so that we no longer have a catch and release program. The victim advocate, and if any of you remember the July 4th robbery a year ago, that was me. One particular individual has been arrested and released 49 times, no time in jail. Okay, finally, how do you change the demographics so that you have more entrepreneurs with money moving in? Ooh, okay, you have an airport here. How many people know there's an airport in Bennington? All right, okay. Agency of Transportation has gone through Act 250. There are 9 new hangars over there that could be built. So, if there was an ad in AOPA, Aircraft Pilots and Owners Association, advertising new hangars, you would get, oh, want to see a picture of my airplane? See me later. You would get 9 new people moving in, and if you own an airplane, guess what else you've got, okay? And how did you get that? Oh, maybe you're an entrepreneur. So the town, which has ignored the airport, does have a pony in the race. They just don't know it. Yeah, Bennington Pottery, yes, it would be wonderful if they were open. Outdoor lights, I completely agree. I'm getting out my partners to agree with me to have a sign. And sure, okay, so we have a turn off at 11 o'clock or something like that. That would work. Okay, thank you very much for being here, and thank you for listening. And you know what I look like, and you know where to find me.
Excuse me,
Thanks.
sir, what's your name?
Charles Suss. My friends call me Chuck.
Okay, Chuck.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, hopefully not last or least. My name is Wayne Goodman, resident here of Bennington. I agree with the majority of what everyone else has already said. The one thing I'd like to add to that is that if we can improve the quality and number of beds in our hotel systems, then we have the opportunity to attract more overnight or weekend tourism. Also, if we take the existing mountain biking and hiking trails that are all around this town and do a better job of describing what they look like, where they are, how to get to them. And I know we're going to have to work with the new folks from the orchards based on the bats trails that are up behind where the orchards are going to do what they're going to do. But if we could figure out a way to make that be more mainstream. I'm thinking about what happened in the Northeast Kingdom. The Northeast Kingdom went from being dirt poor with very few opportunities to being a virtual hotspot for the mountain biking community in less than a decade. We could do that here, not just with mountain biking, but gravel trails, people who are interested in doing, this time of year, doing fall foliage rides on roads. If all that was mapped out, and if they had a place that they felt safe and comfortable to come and stay for an extended period of time, I think that would be massive. And the other thing I do want to add is that we have to be, as a town, we have to be really careful about the slippery slope of having a whole lot of nonprofits in the town, because nonprofits are just what that sounds like. There's no profit involved in it from the town's perspective. And I agree with Chris. If we can still offer those folks properties, but not have those properties be prime marketable real estate for businesses, then I think we'd be much better off. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Then you, Shirley.
Hi, Beth Wilwall. My husband Dwayne and I own the Gift Garden and the Gift Garden's Holiday Cottage. I'm not really sure where I should start, but it's nice to see that Bennington PD has a couple of guys walking the streets and a beat. But Bennington needs to clean up Main Street. The drugs, the panhandling, the homeless. I don't have a solution, but we have to look at it. As far as marketing, you know, we do a lot of marketing. We use local newspaper, we do digital ads. I'm not really sure billboard is the answer, but we do a lot of marketing with WAMC. I agree, Jeannie said a lot of people come from the south, but we get everybody from Troy, Albany, Saratoga, Connecticut, Canada, a lot of people. We've shown a lot of tourists this Bennington community this year, a lot. And if we can just market it even more, that would be great. Again, don't know what the solution is, but we need to try whatever we can do to try. I'm going out on a limb here, and don't misunderstand me, because everyone has the right to protest for what they believe in. But the protesting on the Four Corners has hurt many local merchants, including our business on the Four Corners. I have no argument of what they're protesting. That's great. They protest for what they believe in, but they block the crosswalk, they inhibit the walk button, they block the sidewalks. From the time that they're there until they leave, I have no business on the corner. They take up local parking areas. The people that come from Massachusetts, I don't have a problem with them protesting, and I don't think that there's anything that we can do about it, but it is affecting all downtown businesses. And that's what I have to say.
Thanks very much, Beth. Shirley was next.
Let Mike go before I go. I don't want him to have to wait through the whole time.
I was going to have Mike open and close.
Shirley Adams, Bennington. I just wanted to bring up an idea I've heard before, but it's not ever seen it acted on, is the open storefronts. While they're open, can we do something to make them more attractive, whether it be display art in them, or do some window painting or something like that? I think I was over in New York, might have been Greenwich, where they do some painting in the open windows, and it just makes it attractive. It's not obvious that the store is empty. Maybe if it's artwork, you redirect them to a store that offers that artwork. Just an idea. It makes the town look more attractive if you're driving through. And then I had a business idea, and I'm not going to open this business, but if there's a young entrepreneur out there, I think an escape room business in our downtown would be useful for the people who come in for, a day and it's rainy, so you can't go hiking. I don't know if folks know what an escape room is. It's kind of like a puzzle room. It's a family activity. I was actually drugged to one with my son and grandchildren thinking, oh my God, they're going to put me through this. And it actually was a lot of fun. So if there's anybody out there who wants to invest in something, I don't think it would take a lot of capital. The one I went to was pretty minimal, and it's an intellectual activity. Just an idea. Thank you.
Can I get?
Well, no, you've already spoken. I got to let people that haven't talked yet go first. Come on up, Mike.
Mike, don't you want to?
Oh, go ahead. You haven't spoken.
I don't like you sitting there without speaking more.
I got a nice comfortable chair.
My name is Michael McDonough. I'm involved in a lot of things in Bennington, but particularly the Better Bennington Corporation. I want to thank everyone. This is going to sound like a closing speech, so you're going to get two. I want to thank everyone for what they've brought to this meeting tonight. I too am a little disappointed that this issue didn't attract more citizens, but at least it attracted quality. Funny way to put it, quality citizens with quality ideas. And I'm very grateful for that. Just to pick on a couple of things. Bruce's idea about bringing the Energy Committee into the needs of downtown, I think is fabulous. And I hope that we can find a way to make that work. And yes, I know you can. And a lot of the other ideas have been talked about and talked about and talked about. And I guess the message that I want to offer right now is one of capacity. I have said this word in a great many Better Bennington Corporation meetings. We have a lot of wishes as an organization, and I think this might be true of so many organizations within the town. Capacity is always a challenge to accomplish all the things that we want to accomplish. Now, one of the things that I see coming out of tonight are people and organizations that have needs and wants. And I think a challenge for the town and the community is to find ways in which to augment in formal fashion the efforts that the BBC makes, the efforts that many of our other organizations in the community make for specific items, but perhaps make them more a part of the whole. And I think of you as the whole, not H-O-L-E, but the one with the W. I don't know why these things pop into my head.
Thank you for that. That was an important distinction, Mike.
I guess I'm trying to say that there needs to be some central clearinghouse that, and I don't know how this would work, but that we all report to, and that everybody who's involved in the clearinghouse knows what's going on in and around the clearinghouse. And I think that one might make us feel a little better about our position in the grand scheme of things. But I think it might also add to collaboration, because the BBC doesn't have all the answers, and none of the other organizations have all the answers. But if we all had a better grasp of what we were doing, I think that would create energy. And so, because you're there, I challenge you with our support to try to have a more comprehensive approach to all our problems and address the capacity component of that. And I want to say one last thing. You talked about traffic. I think one of the most deleterious developments in this community has been traffic, speed, and noise. And it's affecting every neighborhood in the community. We have a great many vehicles on our roads that are not legal. And I know that's not our problem, but it is our problem because they're destroying the environment that we are all so concerned about salvaging and advancing. And, you know, if I was a tourist and I was spending an evening in Bennington, and all I heard was loud speeding trucks and cars, most of them illegal, as I said, I might say, I'm not having any fun here. And the hazard that it creates has already been mentioned too. So we aren't the law enforcement entity for traffic laws, but maybe we've got to tell the state of Vermont, because this can't be we're not the only ones with this problem, that something has to be done. So that's my closing gripe. But again, my thanks to you guys and my thanks to everyone that's here.
Thanks. All right, so I want to give you one more chance quickly, please, and then Mike, and then I need to open it up to, oh, okay, you.
My name's Susan Burgess. Hi. This is a question for you guys. Do you have any control over really bad properties? Like, for instance, I don't know if I should say names, on North Street, a hotel close to the museum. It's an eyesore. I walked behind it for years, and for a year and a half, they filled up the old built-in pool behind it with garbage until it was full, and then they cemented over. Why is stuff like that allowed? Isn't that breaking tons of health? I mean, how many mattresses have been sitting on the front porch for how many months and months and months and months and months? That's one of the first places you see as you come into town from New York. And it's totally an eyesore. What does the town have any, can they enforce any kind of code, or just go in and say, look, you guys, you've got to clean this mess up. You can't be on Main Street and look the way you look. And I walk up and down Monument all the time. Since we lost the policeman that sat there for Mr. Corey, it's unbelievable how fast people go up and down Monument Street. I mean, is there anything, I don't want to say put those radar, but anything that could be done to keep people back down to close to 30? I mean, it's crazy. People are going 50, 60 miles an hour down Monument. That's all.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah, I just was wondering mostly, what can the town do to, like, tell people you can't let your properties look like that?
Our code enforcement department is quite busy, and they have had some successes recently, but there is still more work to be done. And as far as the traffic speed, we do have a methodology where you can start the process. And I'm sure if you called Dan Monks, he would be able to help you out with that.
I just say, I mean, on the vacant properties thing too, we have asked town staff to give us a menu of options for how we can beef up the regulations that we have in effect now. So we're looking at it. Thank you.
Yeah, I very much understand what you're telling us about that property. I own a property that's across from that, and it's a tough one. And I very much believe that the town staff is working on that. And it's a tough one. I agree with you. Yeah.
Dwayne, real quick.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There's everything that's been mentioned tonight I could touch on. The lighting on Main Street after dark, I agree with. I'm 6'3", 235. I get nervous walking up Main Street at not midnight, but in the dark. It's just, and during the day, you have the group that hangs out on the front lawn of the church that's kind of now taking up part of the sidewalk. School Street by the bridge, you have that group there. I don't know what the answer is. The homeless that are, now there's a guy that stands right in front of Farm Road Brewing. 1 minute he's got a walker, 1 minute he's got a cane, next minute he don't have any of them. As far as the noise, and which goes, and Tom, I know we've talked about the protesters. I agree. Everybody has a right to their opinion. I and everybody else on Main Street as business owners has a right to make a living. The noise level, according to the Department of Transportation, there are 6,000 cars a day that go through that intersection. That's a lot of noise, but that's, you know, but when the protesters are there and they get their cars beeping the horns, sitting in our shop on the corner, people don't realize how much that noise echoes through that building. And I'm sitting there one day and it's like, you know, you get a group of motorcycles and I'm thinking, can you imagine living in one of those apartments upstairs and having to listen to this every Saturday from 10 o'clock? Because you have 3 different groups that protest, 10 o'clock until almost 2 o'clock. Something's got to be done. And, you know, like I said, I get everybody has a right to their opinion. We have a right as business owners. I know we've all tried to talk to them, and one business owner said, I've lost so much money. The answer they got was good. I've tried to talk to them. I've had signs shoved in my face. This is I have a right. Well, I have rights too. And the noise, the regular traffic noise, there's really not much you can do about it. But the honking of the horns because the protesters, you know, whatever. The homeless, I don't know what the answer is, but it's just, like I said, I could touch on everything. I don't want to take up everybody's time. Harvest Fest is a really good thing, and even though they block off Main Street, the businesses are good. And I will say, Soberfest did nothing for Main Street. And people may or may not agree with me. It didn't. Harvest Fest, yes, that's a beautiful thing. So, like I said, I don't want to take up everybody's time. I do have more things, but I won't tonight.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you.
He's right about Soberfest.
Yeah. Mike, come on up.
Dwayne's last name?
Wilwell.
I agree with everything, really, everybody has said, but now you people, I am challenging the 5 of you, I wish the other 2 didn't show up. Thank you, Chris. I hope you made lists of what people said, and I hope you find some answers to some of the things that people have. You didn't do anything, did you, Sullivan? Look at him, it's a blank page. Oh. I thought you were showing me a blank page, Sullivan. Don't start. And these solutions, some of them are fantastic, okay? But somebody has to be able to sell them to the general public and implement them. Somebody can't just, you know, Dan's going to have his plate full. He can't do all these things. Maybe if he hires whoever he gets for an assistant, town manager, when he does, can do it. But the option tax, I am not for it. I'm not against it, if it can be used the right way. And you have to sell it the right way. Because I've already talked to people in my general little world, I don't want another one. I says, you don't understand it. Do you want your taxes eventually to go down? Do you want your downtown to look better, to be better, to have more things here? You have to invest in Bennington. No business is successful. Even Chris, he just told you, he invested in his business. Bennington downtown and Bennington itself is a business. We have to invest in ourselves. We can't keep feeling sorry for ourselves and talking about the poor and this and that. They're surviving, the poor. They've got everything going for the poor. We need to have these merchants be able to survive. Jeannie's idea, I'd like somebody to look up, what would it cost for a bulletin board out there, the board, whatever you call it, out there. That's been needed for a long time. Let people out there know Bennington exists, okay? have somebody call the people who own the, I think it just got sold, the pottery. See if they're interested in doing anything. We need a salesman for Bennington. And he doesn't have to be paid a lot, or she, but they need to get some time to get somebody together to coordinate these ideas, bring them back to you, the 7 of you, well, 5 of you tonight, and see what is plausible and what isn't. And I truly believe there's a lot here tonight that is plausible, very plausible, that will make downtown Bennington a better place to be. And I really mean, I'd like to have Dan, if he could, or one of his staff, get a hold of Gladstone, I'll talk to him for you if you want, and see if he's interested in making Johnson Control an RV, you know, where people come in, stay for a day or two or a week or weekend or whatever. And that would be huge for Bennington. I mean, if you saw, Tom, you know, you talk at mines, you see all these big $1 million RVs go by, and most of them, they're trailering a Jeep or something, or another car. And at the price of gas, even though it's gone down, I mean, my God. So I'm just a positive thinker. I always have been all my life. Some people don't think I'm too bright, but that's all right. Tom isn't one of them, I hope. But please don't let this drop, okay?
I never questioned your intelligence, Mike. It's the positivity part that I was struggling with.
Positively will run your ass over when you get off that. No, but seriously, don't let this energy drop, okay? Don't have another meeting next spring. Have one in a couple of weeks. And you guys come up with ideas.
Thanks, Mike. Is this on the downtown, Debbie? Okay. You're the last one, and then I want to open the floor to anyone that has anything they want to say that's not related to the downtown. This is still...
Debbie Matt, Bennington. You were talking about the empty storefronts and buildings on Main Street. Is it legal to publish the people that own those places and put in there that they refuse to rent, or that they're an unknown, unget a hold of? You know, put it out there on the web or in the local paper monthly so everybody knows that we're not just sitting back. I don't think a lot of people know that some of those places are empty because they refuse to rent them. Just the thought.
Thank you.
Bennington's dirty dozen.
Now, does anyone have anything they want to talk about that's not related to the downtown?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
I mean, it is, but it isn't. And that is, we were talking earlier about
Move the mic up so it's... There you go.
when I touch these things, they tend to explode. We were talking earlier about lighting. And throughout Europe, there are a number of cities that are using LED lighting with proximity sensors. And it's down lighting, so they're not illuminating the sky, they're just illuminating the walkways. Those, coupled with proximity sensors, basically means that as you're walking along, the area you're walking along is illuminated, and once you pass that area, if no one else is there, the lights turn off. So the cost to the town for operating those would be significantly less than normal street lights. And I'm sure Bruce can give you a number of points of contact or a number of references for facilities or for manufacturers that produce these kinds of lighting, and if not, I can. That's mostly all I wanted to say.
Anyone else? Nancy?
Well, I was glad to hear a couple of business owners raise concerns about what you're seeing in the downtown. I've tried for over 2 years for this board and others to have an honest discussion about homelessness in the town of Bennington. Most people in our area have no idea what's been going on in Brattleboro and Burlington for many years. It's a combination of substance abuse, mental health issues, crime, and homelessness. And if we don't start to have public discussions and come to agreements with the groups getting paid to work with the homeless, we're going to have the same problems in Bennington within 2 years. I've already pointed out, for 25 years, we have been the only town in Bennington County with homeless shelters. By now, it's time for other towns to step up and open shelters This is what people in Brattleboro and Burlington were saying. You cannot have one place in the county doing it all. The other towns have to step up and start taking care of their own. But again, if the board won't have a discussion, I'm afraid the groups working with the homeless are planning. They want to continue to bring everyone in the county to Bennington each year going forward. We've done it by ourselves for 25 years. The other towns need to step up. The groups need to start working with the other towns.
Okay, does anyone else on the board that have anything they want to say in closing? Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you for everybody for coming tonight. I appreciate so many people are coming and sharing their interests and concerns about the town. It really is energizing to hear so many concerns, concerning as well, but I think these are a lot of things that, no, I'm going to correct myself. These are some things that we can share with one another. Maybe we can address. We as a town cannot solve all of these. Maybe we can't solve any of them actually, but we can bring them to the legislature. But it's good that we're not sitting in silos. So thank you for bringing them to us.
Yeah. Clark.
Hi. As to echo what Sarah just said, we are doing some of the things that are recommended are works in progress, and it's almost like stay tuned. But please, if the next couple of select board meetings, we're going to hear some ideas and actions that we're proposing and trying to get in place to address these concerns. But like everything, as people hear me say a lot of time, we got to hear from folks. Folks in this town have to speak up, stand up, and get involved, because the 7 of us can have all the great ideas and come up with plans, but if we don't have the people in town with us, working with us and speaking to us, we're just spinning our wheels. So thanks for coming, but everything that's being said tonight, believe it or not, we're working on it, and we just need your help and support to address those things.
And that's a nice segue into what I was thinking. Everyone knows we do have the Contact the Select Board, or if everyone doesn't know, they should know, we have the Contact the Select Board button on our town website. And the last 2 weeks at least, our digest consisted of the words, "There were no public comments this week." We need more people to utilize this feature. I will say that I was speaking with Dara the other day. The kids that you might remember a few meetings ago, we had some young people in from the Alliance for Community Transformation. They wanted to be here tonight because they have some ideas about the downtown, but they have another meeting that they had to go to. So I encouraged her to encourage them to use that portal. So every one of you, these listening sessions are only one way that you're able to contact us. You can contact us as you think of things just by logging onto the website and using the Contact the Select Board button. And that does go out to all of us weekly in a digest form. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming. I think this was a really good discussion. We are 48 minutes over time. But I definitely wanted to make sure that we had the time to hear from so many people for taking the time to come out tonight. So thanks very much, and we'll see you at the next one.